Hi, welcome to Higher Comprehension with Chris and Jason. Today we're talking about the Mayan Empire, rise and fall. And now here's Jason to get us started.
Well, they historians have kind of broke up the Mayan into three main periods. You have the pre-classic, and this is where it gets really complicated because nobody actually agrees on the dates of this, okay? Like if you Google it, you're going to get different dates. You know, if you look at one place, you're going to get this date, this. But anyway, we're going to go by about 2000 BC to right around 250 AD. Most people agree that's when the classic period started. And then you have the classic period that runs, you know, until about 900 AD. And then what they call the post-classic, which is like 900 AD until 1521 when the Spanish showed up. For a long time, they thought that the Maya only built during the classic period. They didn't realize how advanced the pre-classic Maya actually were, which is interesting because the more technology we get, the more we look into it, the more we find, the more pyramids, the more structures, the more cities, the more how they're interconnected by roadways and stuff. In Guatemala, it is unreal. They have what they call the Maya Biosphere Reserve, and it covers 1/5 of the country, and it's like 21,000 kilometers squared. It's just humongous, and they don't know what all is in it, but they done enough LiDAR search that they know there's thousands of structures there, you know, in that area. LiDAR, if anybody doesn't know what it is, LiDAR is like radar that sees through the jungle, and when they do it, they have to do it from like an airplane or a helicopter or whatever, but after they do it, it shows it just removes all the fauna, plants, trees, bushes, anything like that. It removes the jungle basically, and shows you the structures underneath. And when you see pyramid shapes or squares or things that aren't natural, you know that that's a site where it's been built, and you can send people out there, and you don't have to, you know, try to send people through miles and miles of jungle when you know, just looking.
To stumble upon something.
Which you pretty much can in any direction. That's the thing. So with the LiDAR and stuff, you know, they're uncovering just thousands of structures that are hidden in the jungle, which gives credit to the first accounts by the Spanish. He was in the Indiana Jones movie. They mentioned him, his name. I want to say it's like Francisco de Oro, something like that. I don't know. He had more names in there. They had a lot of fancy names back in the day. But anyway, his party was the first to sail all the way down the Amazon. And they wrote about seeing just hundreds and thousands of the pyramids and temples and structures, and they described seeing so many people. And a century later, when people were actually, more Spanish had come and were actually exploring it, the jungle had retaken it, and they didn't see all these people. They would see a few things here and there, and they thought it was just exaggerated. But now we're coming to find out that everything they said was true, because the Mexico to Chile is just covered in megalithic structures, buildings built by hundreds of different, you know, peoples. The Maya relied heavily upon corn, and it's not what we think of as corn today. And what I mean is, you know, when we think about corn, we're thinking about a long stalk of corn, big like this. They're cobs like that, like the size of your pinky. They've taken all the best traits from each different kind of corn they found and bred them together, you know, like we do, and eventually we've ended up with the corn we have today. But what they had was nothing like what we have today. But having said that, their creation myth goes, one of their gods, so I'm not going to tell you where the blood comes from, but he mixes his blood with the corn and makes the first people. This is how heavily corn is involved in their society. But see, even later on, that's why they sacrificed people. they're repaying the blood debt that they owed to the gods for creation. That was, most people don't get that. That's why they sacrifice. You know, when the Spanish came, they thought they were barbaric. You know, they were sacrificing this people, but it was their religion. You know, they looked at the Spanish as being barbaric because they were just slaughtering innocent women and children and killing people. You know, the Maya and others who practiced sacrifice like that, they didn't kill people in battle. They only tried to wound and capture them. You know, they considered the human body not even theirs. It belonged to the gods. You know, and you were only supposed to spill the blood in a sacrificial way, usually on top of a pyramid and getting your heart cut out. But the religion and religious aspects of it, you know, we don't know enough of it because of too much of the writing was burnt. You know, the Spanish burned all the writings. There was 4 surviving Maya codexes, and you know, the Maya were one of the few indigenous peoples in Americas that had a written language. And it's sad, you know, because they saw it as heretical or whatever, you know, against God, you know, against their Christian God. So they burned the books. What we know of Maya, how we know how to translate it, all that, it comes from all the inscriptions we found on pyramids and on pottery and steles and stuff.
What was it, a 15-year-old solved it in the 80s?
I believe that's correct. Yeah, I believe you're absolutely correct. Yeah, a 15-year-old deciphered
because he grew up with his dad studying.
Right. Okay, so I don't really want to get too much into their gods and stuff. I think bringing that up is a good way of getting into the sacrifice and stuff, because they were real big on sacrifice. You know, like I said, in warfare, you know, they didn't try to kill people. You know, it was about capturing people. You know, they wanted captives. They wanted people to sacrifice. And, you know, it's just a whole different society and a way of being brought up and alive. And it's one of the things I like to think about when I'm thinking about history, you know, is trying to put myself in their place and not judging them like we typically do, especially as Christians. It always amazes me that Christians have persecuted everybody that they've come across since they were legitimized by Constantine in 324 AD or whatever, because before that they were persecuted. And, you know, there's still the myth of, you know, throwing Christians to the lions in the arenas in Rome and stuff. I don't know if that really happened or not, but I watched a video the other day, but they said found proof where they actually fed Christians to the lions in London, in ancient London, you know, which is interesting. They said that was just myths before, but they found proof of it. I don't know. Anyway, back to the Maya. They occupied parts of, you know, southern Mexico, Guatemala, Honduras, Belize, and El Salvador. So they had a pretty good area there in Central America that they occupied. You know, they had several major cities: Palenque, Copan, Palenque and Uxmal. I don't know if I'm saying that one right. I don't know if I'm saying any of them right. But those two are in the Yucatan Peninsula, which is like, you know, they're the part that sticks off there of Mexico. Yeah, right there. There you go. And then you have Copan. That's in Honduras. And, you know, they had several major cities that, Tikal, that was a big one.
Tenochtitlan or?
No, that is Aztec, Tenochtitlan. It was where Mexico City is today. It's actually under Mexico City. That's interesting. We'll have to do the Aztecs one day and talk about them.
Yeah.
But since you brought that up,
wasn't it originally Mayan or something?
No, they gave that land to the Aztecs when they came in, and it was a swamp. Okay. And they started building tying reeds together and stuff, and they built islands and causeways. And by the time the Spanish showed up, they called it the Venice of America, because that's what it looked like. And, you know, it was a clean city. They hauled trash out every day, which is one of the things that killed off so many people here in the Americas was disease from, you know, the conquistadors and everybody else that come over. They come over with these animals that have all these diseases that the native peoples have no immunity to, and then the diseases that the Spanish and French and Portuguese or whatever give to them, like smallpox and measles and mumps and stuff they'd never had. And it just kills off millions and millions and millions. We don't even know how many millions. It's sad, really. What I was getting at though is that they told the Aztec to do that. The Aztec were used like mercenaries of the day. But after building Tenochtitlan, they had also found Teotihuacan, which was abandoned. We don't know who built Teotihuacan, but they think it was built around 200 AD, which meant the Maya would have known who did it because they were right there beside them. But I don't think that's the case. I think it goes back much further, and it's a very, very interesting site that you could spend hours alone just talking about. There's so many things that like lines up with Orion's belt, like the pyramids at Giza. It's a line like the Pyramid of the Wizard or Magician, however you want to translate it. Matches up with the cardinal directions, north, south, east, west, all that good stuff. I mean, it's amazing. But what I was getting at is the Maya, they think that the Maya, Aztec, and others were like cohabiting Teotihuacan, at certain periods of time because of debris and leftover stuff, that they found excavating. But Teotihuacan's an interesting one. Let's see, let's get back to pure Maya. They had, like I said, they had several major cities, but they like to build pyramids, and as I've told you in the past, I think that they were copies. Some of them were actually built upon older ones, like Chichen Itza. We know it was built on top of another one, and it's also one of the ways that they were able to survive where they did, because it was built upon a water source. Did you run across anything about the cenotes?
Yeah.
Okay, yeah, those things. I wish I could talk more prolifically about them, but I don't know enough about them. But it mixes in with their religion. They think that it had something to do with the underworld and their gods, so they would make like sacrifices, not sacrifices, but like give offerings or whatever. They'd like throw gold, statues or whatever in the water or whatever. They have found all kinds of, well, they found bones too, to be honest. I've seen where they've dived down in one of the cenotes and they found bones and stuff, and it looked like it'd been stacked on the shelf, like fixed in a certain way, you know what I mean, like a specific way. It wasn't just a body thrown in the water. So they must have done it when the water table was much lower. Those cenotes were very important to them for many reasons. As one, they thought they were entrances to the underworld, but beyond that, it was a water source and a way, to irrigate crops that they were growing. And, they had several major crops, but corn was, the biggest thing that they grew. Didn't really get into their writing. There's the 4 surviving codexes. I've even seen one thing that said there was 5, but I don't know where the 5 is. They're usually named after like the cities where they're at. Like one of them's called the Dresden Codex, is in Dresden, Germany. But their language consisted of over 800 different symbols, which makes it complicated as heck. That is a very difficult language to learn, I would say.
The kid in the 80s
discovered
that a lot of them were the same, just in different ways.
Right. Egyptian hieroglyphics kind of do that too, but that's a different story. But, they originally would write on papyrus, which is, just a form of paper. But they did it on the pottery and temples and pyramids too, like I talked about. The rulers would imitate what the god did, and, blood let from their penis. And sometimes they would tie like a string through it so it wouldn't coagulate and it would keep bleeding. Oh man, yeah, I can't even imagine living like that. That's why I like to get into things like that, to give people like details, that you don't get in the history books. They just don't really talk about that. And some of it's interesting, but to me, I think one of the most interesting things is the gods. Some of them are shared throughout all the civilizations. They They all seem to have one called the plumed or feathered serpent god. The Aztecs called him Quetzalcoatl. That's a mouthful. The Maya called him Kukulkan. The Inca called him Viracocha. And the most interesting part is that they call him the plumed serpent god, but the plume usually referred to like a headdress. And in most accounts, he's a white dude with a beard. So where did these people meet a white guy with a beard? How would they know about white guys and people with beards? Or people that grow facial hair, period. There was definitely pre-Columbian contact. I don't care what anybody says. We know for a fact that, you know, the Vikings were here and maybe made it as far as South America. There's no actual proof of that other than some dogs that were known to have belonged to the Vikings that were found mummified in Peru. We know the Vikings made it to Newfoundland in Canada, and the thing I was watching was trying to say that it got traded from one native group to another till it made it from Newfoundland, Canada, all the way down to Peru. That was the biggest bunch of garbage I've ever heard. A 9-year-old could have come up with that theory. No, there were people down there. There's myths of white people. Just about every Native American group, every Mesoamerican group, and every other anything you can think of. I mean, it's as prolific as the stories of giants. But that's a whole nother podcast.
I mean, I'm sure lots of people have traveled around that didn't take a journal down, so there's no history of it.
Well, not just that. A lot of them didn't even have writings. You know, these people were capable of navigating the ocean and traveling around the world, but, you know, they didn't have a writing system. They didn't have a need for it. You know, people who invent writing have a need for it. They're farmers. They were people who built the cities and started establishing stuff and, you know, started having a surplus of grain. So, you know, they needed to keep track of it. You know, this person gave me this, or the priest in the temples, you know, writing down, well, this guy donated this to the temple, this person, you know, owes taxes, or, you know, whatever. You know, it was usually for purposes like that. And then, of course, all the rulers used it to flaunt their whatever they did, and, my God, most of it's lies. In Mesoamerica and the Maya, the Inca, they would make these steles, you know, that proclaimed all these great victories they had or whatever, and a lot of times you find out it was half-truths or lies, you know, propaganda to make themselves look better, is what it is. But they had other gods that were similar too. The Maya had Chak, the rain god, and they equate him to Tlaloc. I can't get that one out. It's spelled Thaloc, if you care to know. It's Tlaloc or something.
Tlaloc.
Yeah.
I'm more interested in this rain god called Cock.
Spelled Chac.
Okay.
Yeah.
Just
Chak.
so people know.
It's Chak. Yeah.
But it's pretty.
We're not saying that. It's Chak or Cock. Well, it actually. Well, anyway, I'm not going to say that. So, the gods were more fluid. That's the only word I can think of to describe it in among Mesoamerica. You know, anywhere in Mexico to Chile. That's what I guess you would consider Mesoamerica, or I do when you hear people talk about it. Anyway, they would sometimes like come in different forms. They would have like they might be a male and the god of corn in this one, but when it comes back it might be in a female form and the god of fertility. So they could be gender fluid. They could be, you know, various forms of them, maybe different avatars. I know that in India, a lot of them, they consider like Vishnu having different avatars, and he would come in one form or another, you know. I guess that's a way of equating it. But, you know, another big thing was their ball game. Did you see anything about that?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, it was prolific all across, you know, Central and South America.
Hundreds of, or Probably thousands of quarts.
Oh yeah, hundreds anyway, and that would be huge. And I've never really heard anybody say this. It's why people in Central and South America, I think, took to soccer so easy, because you don't use your hands. You're supposed to use your shoulders or your thighs to knock this rubber ball through a hoop. It's kind of like soccer and basketball combined, but you don't use your hands. You can't use your hands.
These solid rubber balls.
Solid, they were hard as hell, man. They would hurt. They actually wore some kinds of protection in a few places here and there, and then they would put on these big headdresses. But here's the messed up part. A lot of times the winners got sacrificed. That's not a game I want to win.
I thought the losers got sacrificed.
That happened too sometimes, but sometimes it was the winners. I don't.
As one, you get to be the sacrifice.
We don't understand the rules of it, or what happened, or how they decided.
Sacrifice sometimes back then.
They would willingly be sacrifices. They would, like I said earlier, they did not consider their body their own. It was the gods. So they were just giving the gods back what was theirs. They would willingly be sacrificed. Now I'm sure that's not all of them that they captured and stuff like that, but when they didn't have captives to sacrifice, it's you and you, come on up. And they just walk on up and, get their heart cut out or whatever. Which is an interesting thing. That reminds me, I didn't speak about obsidian. That was a big thing throughout, Central and South America. Obsidian is so damn sharp that even today surgeons still use it because it's sharper than a scalpel. I don't know where, but I heard that fact. So is it true or not? Hell, I don't know. But I've read that in a journal.
Mayan surgeons, they're still using it today.
They probably do too. Dude, I hate to think that they wiped out all Mayan culture or all Incan culture or all Aztec culture. I guarantee you there are people out there that still practice some of that stuff. Some of the pyramids that they built were just fantastic, though. Like El Castillo. I'm sure I'm saying that right. Castillo. It was a very large one. I can't remember the dimensions. I'm horrible with numbers. But it was one of the bigger ones. I want to say it was the largest one they made. Might be wrong. I don't know. I can't remember. Now, Teotihuacan that we talked about earlier has a base that is equal to Giza, to the Great Pyramid of Giza, but it's not as tall.
Oh yeah, I saw that.
It is wide,
flat,
yes.
wide.
But see, that's the thing about the Inca and the Maya. The pyramids throughout South America tended to be flat on top, and they would always have like a temple or structure on top of it that they built, and which is a weird thing that they had in common with the mound builders in what is now the United States. We had the mound builders, and they would build them in a pyramid shape, and then they would build a structure on top of it. The ones in Egypt, for example, they're usually built all the way up, and almost all of them are missing the top part of it. I think they're called pyramidions. I may be wrong on that. Don't quote me on that one. It's got another name too, something cap. I don't know. I can't remember. But the one that was supposed to be on the pyramid of the Great Pyramid of Giza was said to be made of solid gold. That'd be interesting. Can't imagine why anybody'd steal that.
Can I borrow it?
Right. The Maya, we didn't get into their calendar. They had the calendar. It was a long count and a short count. And I never really got into it. But I thought the most interesting thing about it was that it was supposed to end in 2012 and had everybody running around scared that, the world was coming to an end. Hell, they even made a movie about it. But their calendar was interesting. The fact that they had a calendar, a full alphabet, a writing system, they knew about...
Their calendar systems are crazy, how far they... look into the future, basically, knowing what everything's going to be and how it's going to come back around in thousands of years. I mean, I can only imagine the math it would take.
Chichen Itza, you mentioned that a minute ago. That one, there's a cool fact about it. It has 4 sides. It's a pyramid. It has 92 steps that go up to it, right? Well, that comes to 364, and then you have the top step, which makes 365, which is the days in a year. And on the winter and summer solstice, you can see a snake going down. It's like a shadow of a snake that goes down the stairs. And weird. There were many different theories as to what led to the downfall of the Maya. Severe climate change, drought, civil war, maybe mismanagement, that probably led to that. As I told you before, I thought the best theory was that it was probably a culmination of all of it. It's not like a civilization ever just completely falls all at once. It doesn't just completely fall. It took the Roman Empire years to fall apart. What I think is funny is I think most people, when you're talking about it, do not realize that, well, the Mayan Empire fell, but the Maya people were still there. And there are estimated to be like 6 million Mayan descendants today, and they still speak the 28 different languages that Mayan were known to have, which is amazing to me that they've kept that many languages alive, because there have been so many languages throughout history, and there are so many dead languages, like Latin is a dead language. There's no people anymore that speak Latin, so it's a dead language. It's kept alive through science and the Catholic Church, but it's considered a dead language because there's no actual culture that speaks it anymore, since the fall of Rome. The fact that they were known to have 28 different languages and that they're all still alive is amazing to me, because languages die out and change so frequently. Languages constantly evolve, which makes life difficult for historians, but it also kind of helps because you can track the way people are, how they move, how they migrate, changes in people and stuff through language, so it's kind of a good thing. For the Maya, the classic period was thought to have ended around 900 AD, like we discussed earlier, and that from there till the Spanish arrived in 1521, they called the post-classic, and they weren't thought to build anything anymore. Their civilization was falling apart and coming to an end. From what I understand, a couple of the more prosperous cities fell first, and it actually made some of the others, like Copan, more prosperous for a while until they fell. And then the Spanish, of course, showed up, and they were a game changer.
Where'd they show up at, do you know?
Where did the Spanish first show up?
Yeah. Was it in like the Yucatan or something? Or?
Cortez came in at the Yucatan Peninsula, apparently against orders from his superior, Velasquez, however you say his name. But he took 600 men and hit the Yucatan and went on from there to change history. Sad what happened afterwards. Almost as sad as what happened once, white people got into the United States and made it the United States.